This is the second part of the discussion on expressive line shapes and forms. Now we're going to concentrate on line. Technically, lines are one-dimensional, meaning that they have only length, not width or depth. But in reality, we know they have width. So I'd like you to take a look at this piece, and I'd like you to assess which line or lines might express nervous. Which line or lines might express calm, and which lines might express graceful. So for me, good examples of nervous, I would say either this one right here in the center or even this one up here. Now, part of the reason of that is because these are diagonal lines, and as I mentioned in the previous video, whenever anything's on diagonal, it ups the energy level. Also, these seem to be almost running or rushing, okay? So when I think of nervous, I think of feeling kind of jittery. Sometimes you're tapping your foot or tapping your fingers. So these both seem like good examples of expressing nervous. For expressing calm, well, there's several that could be argued as being calm, but I'm going to pick just a couple of them. So this one down here seems very low in energy. And when I think of the word calm, I think of low energy. I would even say this one here would definitely have low energy. Possibly getting a little more energy than this one down here because of the line quality, because there's a little variations in the thickness. And last but not least, a couple of lines that I would consider graceful. Would definitely consider this one. It almost feels like it's dancing. Or even this one right here with the loop in it. Okay, it's a nice, soft line. So line direction and energy. Lines, like shapes and forms, contribute to the feeling and energy level in a design on an unconscious level. As we discussed with the rectangle, lines are also affected by the direction or major flow in which they're going. So if you have lines that are horizontal, like the rectangle, that will have a lower energy, it's kind of quiet, calm. If they're vertical, it implies strength and stability, and that has a medium energy. And any line that's on a diagonal, like anything else placed on a diagonal, has higher energy. It implies motion and action. So thinking about that and just going back and taking a look at those lines again, I think you can see how that applies. Line quality is affected by the type of materials used to create it. Just like shapes and forms, line can either be man-made or organic. Now, I only give a couple samples of man-made line and organic line. There is definitely more than what I'm touching on in here, but this is a good place to start. So one of the types of man-made lines is a hard-edged line. So if you look at this piece down here, this is a blueprint. And part of the quality of blueprints is that they have very straight, hard-edged lines. So it has distinct boundaries and it implies strength and has man-made quality. Outline is defined as a line that has the same even thickness all the way throughout. So when it tends to be flat and it tends to segment shapes when you use it, and it also implies a man-made quality. Line qualities that are organic can be soft edge lines or contour lines. Especially if you study drawing, you'll have an opportunity to really explore the concept of contour lines. But let me just give you a very brief description of it. If you look at this drawing of the hand, for example, you'll notice And the areas that go into shadow, the line gets thicker. Here we get this implication that there's probably light hitting this thumbnail, and that line is so thin it's close to non-existent. Again, a thinner line here, thicker line there. So when an artist uses contour line, and oftentimes it's used in things like figure drawing or any attempt to make something look realistic, they're looking for this variation in line width. It helps create that illusion of shadow. So contour line is an organic line. Soft edge lines have a softer quality, and they also imply gentleness and appear to be from nature. So we have this sketch over here, and you can see, although we have some areas with thicker lines, you can see kind of these nice, gentle, soft lines, and that is an organic line. So let's take a moment and look at this piece by Saul Steinberg. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing his name. Based on what you understand about lines, what do you think is happening in this illustration? Look at the line quality and the energy level while assessing it. So to me, what's going on in here is here's this little girl, and she's possibly talking about what her day's about or what her interests are. And here's this kind of soft, gentle, organic line. And we see cats and birds and houses and dogs and other kids, flowers. And there's this man, and he seems to just be talking over her. Okay, we've got these thick diagonal lines, and it seems like he's not necessarily listening to her. So what I'd like you to gather from this is that line quality and line type just in itself can really be expressive in a design on an unconscious level. Now, there are different line types. The first one we've been talking about a lot, which are actual lines. Okay, so there's that. But there's two other ones, implied lines and psychic lines. Implied lines are actually not lines. They're formed from dots or dashes. They can even be formed by little objects. As long as they're placed relatively close to one another, what our mind does is it groups it together and reads it like a line or follows it like it's a line. Psychic lines are not real lines. Yet they feel like a mental connection between two or more objects. For example, when you look at the arrow pointing at the dot, you get this imaginary line. You look from one to the other. So let's see how that works in a painting. This is a painting by one of the followers of Hieronymus Bosch. So let's look at the psychic lines in action. What's happening in this painting? Look at the direction of the eyes of the people in this piece. Next, what's happening to the purse of the man participating in the magic show? Okay, so here's the purse here, okay? And in medieval eras, men carried sacks that they'd tie around their belts, and they called these purses. So here's this man. Look at the eyes here. He's connecting, he's looking at this. This man's watching him. Excuse me, look at this man looking over here. What do you think's going on here? So the conjurer is watching his victim. Our victim is watching the ball in the hand of the conjurer. In the meantime, the victim is being pickpocketed. The pickpocket looks innocently into the air, but at least a few of his accomplishments, I can't say the word, few of the people who are working with him keep an eye on the victim. In this humorous example of psychic lines, the eyes of the figures are the lines, so to speak. Please also note that whether it's humans or animals, we humans unconsciously follow the direction that lines point us towards. So that's psychic lines. So the next few pieces I'm going to bring up I'd like you to assess the following. What I will do is I will simply stop on each slide and let people respond. But what you need to look at is, do you feel that it's mainly man-made or organic? Look at the line quality to help you assess this question. Now, in these examples, we're not just talking about line quality, we're also talking about the shapes and forms. Okay, so look at all this. This is tying together everything that we've talked about in the 2 videos. So what are the main 1 or 2 shapes that you assess in these pieces? Based on the main shapes, what is the energy level? Are the negative, positive space, color, and value being used adding or subtracting from the energy level of the shapes? First of all, let's compare. What are the major shapes? Which of these 2 feels like it's organic, and why do you feel that? So in this piece, let's look at the major flow. What's the direction of the major flow? Looking at what is the major type of shape being used in it? What's the orientation of that shape, and what does that mean about the energy level? Now, other elements of design that come into play. How do you feel the color and the value are affecting this piece? And in the sense of energy level, is it bringing it up? Is it bringing it down in energy? In this piece, what do you feel the 2 major shapes are? Based on their orientation, what type of energy level? Looking at the line quality of the piece, how is that affecting it? Does it feel man-made? Does it feel organic? How are the colors, the negative space, and the value affecting this overall piece? And let's do one last comparison. What is the major, look in both of these individually and determine what the major flow is. What are the major shapes that are being used, and how are their orientations affecting the energy level? Which feels organic? Which feels man-made?